Excel's sparkline feature, introduced in Excel 2010, is a great tool for quickly creating charts without much hassle. For example, we might want to see some visual that explains whether there is or not a trend over the 12-month period here for different regions. And so we might want to put a sparkline in each of these cells. Now, a sparkline could be defined quickly as simply an in-cell chart, and they come in 3 versions. Let's imagine we want those sparklines to appear here. The Insert tab in the ribbon is where we find sparklines. Recognize there are line, column, win-loss. For showing trends, line charts are generally considered best. We're going to put a line right in each of these 4 cells here. And in the Create Sparklines dialog box, the data range, the source data, actually is the data right here. And we click OK, and there we have a sparkline. And that tells the story, but is it displayed the best way? There are lots of formatting opportunities for sparklines to make them appear even better than they are right now. I think right now it's a little bit weak, probably doesn't make the case too well. Recognize there's a context-sensitive design tab that appears when sparklines have been created or whenever you highlight these cells. First order of business here might be to change the sparkline color or possibly change the thickness of it first, then maybe the color. We can change the color from some of the various style options up here if we wish. That's not always too critical. And the other thing we can do, and not so obvious, and there's quite a bit of leeway here in how you present this. First of all, we could have put this right next to the data. We could make the column that they're in wider. Now that does flatten out the line. Sometimes we'll zoom in. Recognize what else might we do here? We could make the rows taller. Now this will accentuate the change, if there has been much change. And as I press Ctrl-Z, watch the previous image return. And I'll press Ctrl-Y to reverse again. So at different times, if you are using sparklines with actual lines, you might want to consider the effect of making either the rows taller or the column wider. Different effects there. Also, from the Design tab, if you are using sparklines in the Line option, choose Axis here and show the axis. And that will bring out the fact, as in this case here, there could be negative data. Of course, there is in the examples we see here. Now, there are other options here to pursue as well. What if we choose the Column Sparkline option? The problem with these, at least initially, is that as we look at the columns, there's a tendency to want to compare the different cells here. Now, if you look at the West entries, the highest value there, which is February, is 463. If you look at East, the highest value there is 296, which is for April. But if you look at the column for April under East, and then the column for February under West, they look about the same size. So if you are using these to avoid that problem, you want to go to the Axis option here and choose Same for all sparklines for the vertical axis minimum value, and also Same for all sparklines under vertical axis maximum value options. Now there's a relativity about these that makes some sense. So now we can see that April entry for East is of a certain height, and then the February entry for West is substantially larger, and that truly reflects the numbers as we're seeing these. So there are some definite formatting issues that you want to consider here when you're using sparklines. If we select these rows here and simply double-click one of the boundaries here, we return these to a standard width, and then the display perhaps isn't so good. Now, once again, consider how we might make the column narrower. So you've got some options and some leeway within there too. If you simply wanted to emphasize or bring out the fact that we did have some negatives, but not too many, if you'd like to show just the fact that there have been some negatives here, go to the Design tab and choose Win-Loss. And of course, we see pretty quickly that South is the only region that had 2 months where there were negatives. The others had 1 month each, but at a different time of the year. So different reasons for using these options. Another possibility is to select these names. Let's copy these by dragging these with the Control key. And then, in this new list, create sparklines from here. Now, this time what we're going to do is put sparklines here to show the trend horizontally, and initially this will not look so good. But if we go to the Insert tab in the ribbon and choose the Line option for sparklines, and then refer to our data range as we did before to be these cells, click OK, we'll have the entries here. Now those are the same images we saw initially, but let's change these by merging all of these cells and then have the lines go across. Now we can't highlight all the cells like this, but we can select the first set of data here, then releasing the left mouse button and using the control key, select this data, control key still held down, this data, and this data. And from the Home tab, we will format these as Merge and Center. And then from the Design tab, the Contextual tab, go to Axis, show the axis possibly. How about Sparkline Color here, giving it more weight? And again, consider this as an option. Clicking outside of these brings out that issue. Here too, as before, we might want to make the rows taller. Does that display the information better? Different options here to display these. So there are a lot of formatting possibilities here with sparklines. And again, a different option here as we saw before, but below the data now would be to go back to the Design tab and possibly choose Column. And again, if you're choosing Column, I think it's really important to go to the Axis tab and make sure that you're using the same scaling for all these so that we don't mistakenly associate different column heights incorrectly. So quite a few options in formatting sparklines, a great feature introduced in Excel 2010.